Welcome back to a brand new PTCG live video. For today's video, we'll be going over the newly revealed cards for the upcoming set Black Bolt and White Flare. So with that being said, let's get into these new cards. I'm on Poke Beach and let's see what has been revealed so far. So we got the entire Electros line that did get revealed here. Mainly the Electrike is the most important here because it is basically a reprint of the Flaffy from Evolving Skies. You're basically getting the Dynamotor back with this ability. Once per turn, you can attach a lightning energy from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. The only drawback that I don't really like about this reprint so much is that the Dynamo is all of 40 HP. So it's basically just Dragapult food if you don't evolve it up quick enough. The only good thing is also the free retreat cost, which is actually kind of handy. But it's definitely missing that 30 HP that the Mareep had back in Evolving Skies, I believe. So moving on to the Electros, it is definitely a decent single price attacker that can just slide in, because if you're already using the Dynamotor, you can definitely maybe run one of these as a single prize attacker with no ability, so it can't be walled out by something like the Cornerstone Ogerpon. And you got the Thunder Fang for a little bit of disruption, 60 base damage, and then your opponent's active Pokemon is paralyzed. And then the Buzz Flip, 100x damage, flip 4 coins, and then do 100 damage for each heads. And then we got the Stoutland line, kind of mid. You got the Odor Sleuth, which is kind of interesting, maybe in the control deck or something, where you get to flip 3 coins, and then for each heads, you can get a card from your discard pile back into your hand. So like I said, and this is mostly for a control deck maybe, and already flipping coins is kind of hit or miss, you know. And then we got the Special Fang for 4 colorless energies, not too great. 100 base damage, and if this Pokemon has any special energies on it, it does 100 more. So for the Stage 2 Pokemon, the possibility of doing 50 damage per energy card is kind of not that great. Then we got a reprint of the Energy Retrieval, where you get two basic energy cards from your discard pile back into your hand. We got the Air Balloon, which also is another reprint, I'm assuming for one of the early Sword and Shield sets, probably Rebel Clash or Sword and Shield base, where if this card is attached to a Pokemon, the retreat cost is 2 colorless energies less. A reprint of the Professor's Research, but with Juniper on the card. We got Hilda, which is pretty interesting. You search out your deck for an evolution Pokemon and 1 energy card. So it doesn't say basic energy, so I'm assuming you can get a special energy card as well with this trainer card, which is pretty good. And then we got Sharon here, draw 3 cards. We got Prism Energy, where if this if the Pokemon this card is attached to is a basic Pokemon, this card provides every type of energy but provides only 1 at a time. I feel like it's really not the greatest because you already got Luminous Energy that does the same thing but for any Pokemon. So, I don't know. I feel like it's only okay. And then the Ignition Energy, which is the most interesting from this reveal here, where this card provides one colorless energy while it is attached to a Pokemon, and if it's attached to an evolution Pokemon, it provides 3 colorless energy instead. So this will definitely help out a lot of single prize decks out quite a lot that have those high energy costs. And yeah, kind of replaces the double turbo energy a little bit. So I'm not sure if they're going to reprint double turbo energy or not. It's kind of odd to not see it reprinted yet. But this is a pretty good replacement in my opinion for the time being. And then we got some secret rare arts that are being revealed here. We got the Zekrom and Reshiram, as well as the Victini and a full art Sharon over here. And that looks like a stamped promo of some kind. And then moving on to the next reveals, we got the 3 genies from Black and White. We got the Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus. They're all kind of not going to be really that playable, because the first attack is kind of like just a accessory attack with Tornadus, attach a basic energy card from your hand to this Pokemon, and then Hurricane, 100 base damage. Yeah, so they're all doing like about 100 damage with their second attack here. Nothing too special. Like maybe the Thundurus can get a little bit of play in a Lightning deck maybe. And then the Landorus, I don't even think so, because it has a 2 retreat cost and 3 energies to attack when fighting doesn't have the greatest energy acceleration really, so we'll have to see. And then they did reveal the special arts for the 3 genies here. Next up, we got the Joltik and Galvantula from White Flare here. The Joltik only has 40 HP, kind of concerning. It is pretty easy to knock out with a Phantom Dive on the bench, so you gotta evolve it up pretty quickly. And then we got the Galvantula Discharge. For 1 lightning energy, we can discard all of the lightning energies on this Pokemon and do 50 damage for each card we discarded in this way. So this can definitely be a good attacker, a single prize attacker. The only problem is that you're definitely going to need some good switching options in the deck so that you can build it up and then switch it into the active. Next we got the Bouffalant EX here, which is going to be another tanky colorless Pokemon, 220 base HP. And with the ability, it takes 30 damage less from attacks. So it's almost like it has 250 HP. And then we got the Gold Breaker for its only attack, 100 base damage. And if your opponent's active Pokemon is the EX, it does 100 more damage. So the damage is actually not too bad. It'll be pretty easy to get that 200 base damage to do some pretty good damage, actually. But the only drawback is, you know, the 2 colorless energies, which is actually not too bad. We can always have Latias EX for the Skyliner and have free retreat, and then just 3 colorless energies to attack. And they're basically saying it's also a reprint from, or more or less a 1-for-1 reprint of the Dragon's Exalted Bouffalant with the same ability and attack names, which is interesting. But yeah, I don't think this will get all too much play. Especially, you know, all I can see this is like maybe going into a Terrapagos EX deck and go for like some tankiness, but that's about it. And then moving on to the entire Cofagrigus line that was revealed from White Flare, we got the Yanmask, which is kind of only okay. Still has a 2 retreat cost, which is not too great. And the Cofagrigus here, with the first attack, elongating Damagrigus. I don't know if I said that right, but it gets to move all of the damage counters from one of your bench Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So a great way to heal up and move all the damage counters off of one of your damaged Pokemon over to your opponents. And then the second attack, really nothing too special, especially for 1 Psychic, 2 colorless, 60 base damage, and your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. Then we got the entire Crocodile line here as well from Black Bolt. Nothing too special. Tighten up for the first attack, 60 damage, and then discard 2 cards from your hand, from your opponent's hand. And at least from the way this is awarded here on Poke Beach, it says your opponent discards the 2 cards. So I'm assuming they get to choose. So not the greatest. And then the Cursed Slug, 120 base damage. And if your opponent has 3 or fewer cards in their hand, you get to do an extra 120 more damage. So I feel like the damage is not all quite there. Kind of gimmicky to get the 240, especially this is on a stage 2 Pokemon as well. So not the greatest. I feel like it's not going to see too much play. Next up we got the Swords of Justice and Fossils from White Flare and Black Bull. We got the Virizion, which is not too great. Giga Drain, do 30 damage, heal 30. I guess if you hit for weakness, you get to heal 60 damage. For the 1 grass energy, and then Emerald Blade, 130 base, and then during your next turn, this Pokemon can attack. I guess the only good thing is maybe the 1 retreat cost or something. I don't know. Not too great. And then we got the Caracosta with the ability Mighty Shell, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon that have special energies on them. Not the greatest ability, since I feel like special energies are not played that frequently. Yeah. Especially the double turbo gone. And then we got the Bite Down. Defending Pokemon can't retreat. So this is going to be a retreat lock Pokemon. Kind of wish they gave some kind of like a status for this Bite Down where you put like maybe Confusion or Paralysis or something. But there's nothing. Or Sleep. But no extra status. So it's only going to be okay. We got Keldeo, which is pretty okay also. We got the Gale Thrust for 30 base damage and then moved from the bench to active, extra 90 more damage. And then the second attack is which is actually kind of decent. The Sonic Edge, 120 base damage, and the attack is unaffected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So basically, we can't be walled out at all by your opponent. Then we got the single prize Terrakion, Retaliate, 50 base damage, and if you had a Pokemon knocked out last turn, extra 80 more damage, which is pretty decent for a single prize fighting Pokemon. The Land Crush, 100 damage, is only okay. And then we do get an Archeops. Primal Wings. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is inactive, choose one of your opponent's evolved Pokemon and devolve it. Kind of mid, considering that this is a stage 2 Pokemon. You're probably better off just using TM the evolution, honestly. And then we got the Cobalion, kind of mid also, just Holy Edge, 20 base damage, and discard a special energy from your opponent's active. And then Metal Arms, 80 base damage, and if this Pokemon has a tool card, do an extra 40. And then this Genesect actually seems kind of interesting. Metal Signal for the ability. Once per turn, you can search out your deck for 2 Metal Evolution Pokemon and put them into your hand. So not too bad. Probably a great way to search out Metang to evolve it up and then build up your other Metal Pokemon. And then Protect Charge, 150 base damage, and then during your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 30 damage less. So not too bad. I definitely think this Genesect will get some play in those metal decks that use Metang. And then we got the Gothitelle from White Flare here. We got the Gatia, the Gotarita, and the Gothitelle, which is a stage 2 Pokemon here. That is Psychic. We got the ability Twisted Future. Once during your turn, if it is in the active, you can have your opponent shuffle their hand into their deck and then draw 3 cards only, which is pretty disruptive. I guess if you combine this something of like Xerosic's Machinations, you can definitely disrupt your opponent quite a bit from having cards in their hand at all. Because going down to 3 cards only, yeah, that's pretty good. And then it is a Psychic Pokemon, so you can easily have this in a Gardevoir deck maybe. And then for the attack, the Synchro Shot, 90 base damage, and if you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, let's see, this attack does a 90 more damage. So I kind of feel like the odds of getting that 90 extra damage are kind of small. I wouldn't count on that, but the ability is pretty good actually. It can definitely maybe make hand control more viable. Because only 3 cards, yeah, that's not too bad. Yeah, the only caveat is like this has to be in the active spot. So yeah, I think it's going to be getting some play at least. See, the next reveal we got is the Mandibuzz from Black Bolt. We got the ability Hunt for Prey. Have your opponent reveal their hand, choose a basic Pokemon with 70 HP, and put it on their bench. So I don't know, it's not really the greatest ability in my opinion. Like maybe if they had it put onto the bench and then switched into the active, it might be better, but it doesn't do that. And a very specific amount of HP, 70 or less. I don't think there's going to see really any play, even in a control deck. It's just not, it's just too specific. And then moving on to the Chandelure line that we got from Black Bolt here, we got the Litwig with 60 HP, which is kind of unfortunate. It'd been better if it had 70 for the Dragapult. And then Lampent with 80, and then we got the Chandelure here, Explosive Flame Pillar, 50 base damage, and if you have 10 fire energies in the discard, 100 more damage. Which that'll be kind of tough, like, I feel like the best use for this card would be with the Ceruledge EX. Because Ceruledge needs fire energies in the discard pile to do damage, and so does this Pokemon. So they basically share a similar attack, and this can be just a good single prize attacker from just in case your opponent tries to wall you out or something. And then burn it all up, 180 base damage, and discard all energy from this Pokemon, which will just be the 2 fire energies. And they already revealed the illustration art for this Pokemon. And let's see, moving on to the Jellicent EX and Frillish. The Frillish is pretty interesting. Just for 1 psychic energy, you got Sea Shadows, 20 base damage, and then your opponent is already item locked, which is pretty good. The only drawback, it is 80 HP, so you can't just easily find it with Buddy Puff, and you will have to use something like Nest Ball or Artisan to find this Pokemon. And then the Jellicent EX. This is pretty much the most powerful card I've seen revealed so far. With the Sea Curse ability, as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent can't play any item or tool cards from their hand. So, and since this is a Psychic Pokemon, I feel like this can definitely slide into a Gardevoir deck pretty easily. And it can definitely do a lot of damage here to your opponent. And even though it is weak to Dark type, it almost feels like it doesn't matter that it's weak to Dark type, because if it is in the active, your opponent will have such a tough time trying to set up that it probably won't get hit for weakness anytime soon. And then we got the Power Press, 80 base damage, and if you have at least 2 extra energies, you get to do 80 more damage for 160. So that's definitely screaming in my face, telling me this has to probably be in a Gardevoir deck, honestly. Because Gardevoir can easily get 2 extra energies without a problem onto this Pokemon. And now we got the, let's see, what is this? The Ranunculus line here. This is a Stage 2 Pokemon. And we got the Cellular Awakening for each one of your benched Pokemon. Search your deck for a card that evolves from that Pokemon and put it onto your bench and evolve it. So a pretty interesting attack, actually. Because it's almost like a TM evolution, but for any number of your benched Pokemon. So if you had 5 benched Pokemon, you can technically evolve up all 5 of them in a single attack. But do keep in mind, this is a Stage 2 Pokemon, so it'll be kind of hard to get into play in the first place. So that's, I feel like, the biggest drawback. And the attack is pretty decent. The Evo Lariat, 40 base damage, and then 40 more damage for each one of your evolution Pokemon in play. So the attack... each attack complements each other, so you basically want to use the first attack first before using the second one, ideally, just to get all of those evolution Pokemon into play. And now we got the Zord single prizer with the Mind Jack. We got 30x damage for each one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. For 1 Dark Energy, that's kind of okay. And then the Foul Play, which is the most interesting here. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. So 3 colorless energy for this attack. You can combine this with that special energy card that we saw earlier, the Ignition Energy. And you can basically just use this for 1 energy card, since this is a evolution Pokemon. And then lastly, for the newly revealed Pokemon, we got the Fungus and Amoonguss here. Dangerous Reaction, 30 base damage. And then if your opponent's active Pokemon is affected by a special condition, you get to do 120 more damage here. Which is pretty decent, 150 damage for 1 energy card on a single prize Pokemon. And then we got the Seed Bomb for the 60 base damage and no secondary effect here. So yeah, those are all of the newly revealed cards that we got so far with the White Flare and Black Bolt. So that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.